Investors are increasingly recognizing the importance of chemicals. On the one side, they want to avoid the financial risks like those seen with PFAS, litigation and remediation costs, and the stock value loss. On the other side, they seek opportunities in safer solutions. At ChemSec, we provide the knowledge investors need to engage with the largest chemical producers and guide investments towards a sustainable and safer future.
Investors worldwide are recognizing the strategic value of safer chemistries, acknowledging the material risks associated with hazardous chemicals. As these chemicals become a major liability, they pose a significant financial, regulatory, and reputational risk that can erode shareholder value. The Chemical Footprint Project provides a critical framework for companies to assess, disclose, and improve their chemical management practices. By going beyond regulatory compliance, companies can future-proof their supply chains and enhance their ESG performance. This approach empowers companies to communicate their commitment to safer chemicals effectively, demonstrating leadership in sustainability and aligning with a vision of healthier environments and improved public health outcomes, ultimately safeguarding long-term returns for investors.
Hello, I am Ethan Mirsky, Chief Product and Strategy Officer for NobleAI. We are a provider of AI-powered software that empowers chemical and energy companies to accelerate the development of better performing, safer, and more sustainable chemicals, materials, and formulations. Sustainability and compliance issues are a major source of risk in the chemical industry today. We believe that with science-based AI tools, companies can de-risk their product portfolio into one of lower risk, higher performance, and greater sustainability. And I'm looking forward to discussing this with you today.
Chemical hazard disclosure is crucial, driven by rising liability for human and environmental impacts. To avoid hollow reporting, we need consistent definitions, reliable ratings, and comparability. ChemFORWARD's ingredient intelligence reports solve for this. Reporting goes beyond chemicals of high concern to quantify unknown hazards, revealing hidden risk. And the reports quantify safer chemicals, which motivates companies to participate. This third-party reporting tool utilizes a shared chemical hazard data trust, enabling consistency, comparability, and scalability for both companies and investors.
Yes, and we would like to dive deeper into the topic of chemicals, and that the chemical topic needs to be on the agenda for investors. And actually, I remember the times when I started with ChemSec 15 years ago, I talked to a few investors and said, well, chemicals is really important. But back then, I think for the next 10 years, climate was the main topic. I went to investors' conferences, and it was really 95% or even 98% only climate. And now we do see a much more broader approach. Biodiversity is kicking in, and also the chemical topic is really on the rise. We see many more investors getting interested in the topic. And the problem, I think there was a nice thing Amy said, well, unmet needs and frustrations. Well, the investors do have that because the data we just discussed it before is still scarce, and the ability to really judge and evaluate what is a front-running company, what is a laggard, is really difficult. And so only what you can measure, you can manage. That is the quote of this session now. And we would like to dive deeper into tools that are available, that you can use. And we are going from an ingredients perspective to AI, then to a chemical company assessment, and then to downstream user assessment. So we have the stepwise approach. And I would like to start with you, Stacy. Can you tell us a little bit more what you do at ChemFORWARD?
I will, and I'd love to use my slides for question number 2 if our amazing tech support would indulge me on that. First, I want to build the foundation of what ChemFORWARD does. Our unique role in the ecosystem is to provide broad access to comprehensive chemical hazard data. And what I mean by that is our sort of state of the art right now is using lists. What are those chemicals of high concern? What are the regulations? What are the emerging potential chemicals of concern? And that's a great place to start, and that's all we were really able to do for the last decade, because that's the information that we had. What ChemFORWARD has done, and I'll quote my co-founder, Dr. Lauren Hine, she says toxic is easy, so making those lists comparatively is relatively easy. But safe is hard. And what she means by that is we need a lot more information to say that a chemical is safe than to say that it's toxic. And that work needs to be done by toxicologists of many different disciplines, human, environmental, and the like specialties, and neurotox and things like that. And so creating those comprehensive chemical hazard assessments has traditionally been expensive and siloed, done under this methodology or that methodology, done by this toxicology firm or that toxicology firm. And what ChemFORWARD has done is to standardize a methodology based on the globally harmonized system, plus additional endpoints that are emerging like endocrine persistence bioaccumulation, and commission those chemical hazard assessments and hold them in a repository that can be shared by everybody, so that a chemical only needs to be assessed once and it can be maintained and supported in this shared repository. And so that is really the difference, is a breakthrough in the amount of information that we have, and we surgically select what to commission those chemical hazard assessments on by working in pre-competitive collaborations with specific industry sectors and then focusing on functions within that sector that are challenging. Oh, there's a lot of chemicals of high concern in this function or that function. Let's assess things that are potential alternatives and verify that they are indeed safer alternatives, thereby avoiding a regrettable substitution. So as we proceed through today, I'll use this base of our chemical hazard assessments as sort of the basis to then show what interesting things we can do with that data for companies and investors.
Thank you very much for that, Stacy. Over to you, Ethan. AI. This is, still the big possibility out there to get to more information. What could you offer?
Sure. So I certainly want to start by saying AI covers a lot of ground, and I focus on a very specific part of that. We've heard talk about using AI for safety data sheets and many other areas, and that's awesome. I mean, we need to use this and accelerating as much as possible. And for me, that's really the theme here, is we need to make this process of identifying issues, hazards, risks quick, easy, and we need to make the replacement part easy. Want to take away that fear that everyone has that, oh my God, if I find a problem, I need to hide it, I need to bury it under the carpet. We need to get to the point where, hey, this is a problem, let's just pull up our laptops, start working, find a solution, and move forward from there. And the way we do, I don't have any slides, but it's okay.
There should be slides.
These are all I've talked about this, if anyone was here yesterday. Pretty much the same thing. You can move forward. We all know that this is hard. And so I think I mentioned this a bit yesterday. One of our key focuses is making sure that these kinds of tools become available to as wide an audience as possible, that you don't need to be a data scientist to use an AI tool to address these kinds of issues. Obviously, if you are a data scientist, we want to make your life even easier, even better, but an investor, a manager, a product manager can use this and gather the information, collect it quickly, analyze it. And then I think we can just jump to the next one. We brought this again up yesterday. When it comes to risk and hazards, we rely on information, the kind of thing Stacy just talked about. We're not generating new information. Our tools do make predictions for chemicals that haven't been analyzed yet. But really all that's saying is, hey, is this something likely to be a problem, maybe not likely to be a problem, just to give initial guidance so that we know where to focus. That's its primary role in that space. But it can do this rapidly across an entire product portfolio. So as an investor, as a product owner, you can say, okay, this new regulation, this new information's come out. Can we how does it impact us? How does it impact this company? Let's search the entire portfolio quickly and flag things that might be an issue now or in the future. But then again, our real focus is, once you've identified that, how do you replace it? And we've heard this before, that like there's sometimes where you have to use something hazardous, or at least you think you do, but that's always not necessarily the case if you're willing to open the box of thinking a little bit and look holistically at the problem and go for what kind of solution is possible, searching a much wider area, and that's something that AI is really good at. Just exploring spaces that you wouldn't have imagined before. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, very interesting. And actually, I really would like to get a little bit more grip on it. So can you have an example of a practical example so that...
Sure. So actually one that was recently announced, we're working with a company called ICL in Israel on flame retardants. That their flame retardants are being banned in Europe, and they've come to us, and we're working with them and been successful at finding alternatives very quickly. So they've been taking the tool, looking at different molecules, existing molecules, generating some new ones that would accomplish the bill, but not fall under not have the same hazard rating. So that kind of things is what we do.
Thank you very much. Well, and then we come to ChemSec and ChemScore. My colleague Jerke has already talked a bit before. I just have 2 slides to get a little bit your head around it. We are scoring 50 top chemical companies by size, and these are our scorecards. If you click them on, you can see the ranking behind it. You can see the improvement points we from our side on the chemical management would see for those companies, and we are ranking in 4 categories. It will change for this year and the coming years, because we heard already that we will have new reporting standards, and we would like to include new data we hopefully get. And so it will be still transparency. We heard already this is key. It will be on the hazardous portfolio, and it will be phase out of PFAS and persistent chemicals, because we think this is for investors the top priority, because it's the largest financial risk there. And also there is a big opportunity for investors. You know, I have been on the stock exchange, I have been proprietary trader and for the bank. So I always wanted to know, okay, where are the new markets? Which company will rise? Why do they see opportunities? And actually at the moment, I would love to put my money into companies that provide PFAS alternatives, because I think they will have a great market in the future. So this is the investor thinking behind it. If you go to the next slide, we are doing ChemScore now 5 years. And here you see actually the whole ranking for those 5 years. The colored ones are the ones from last year, and the gray dots are from the previous years. And you see that there is quite well, we are still not in the greens, so still way to go. It would be possible if you take out the best practice of each single question and put it into a virtual company, then you would go into the A. So it is possible. What you also see at the end, there are big movements where companies really did an effort to get higher. And I would say for us, the overall result for those 5 years is we do see slow progress on detoxification. It's really a lot of things have to be done in the future. Also, the data is really scarce to really track that. But on the other hand, for all these topics on transparency. We also had circularity. Those topics that companies are really working on. We really see changes, and we can now certainly see who are the front runners and who has to go a further way. So this is ChemScore. As I said, it will be very different, or it will be different now from 2025, but it's still a journey, because also with the new reporting, I think we will have this in a later panel. We discuss the new reporting. This is a challenge for the companies. It's a challenge for everyone to understand what we will get. Will it be comparable? Will it be comprehensive? So we will see how to get there. But this is a ranking assessment for the chemical industry. And now we go over to you, Angela, because you are looking at the downstream users. So how do you assess them?
And first, I would like to make a link with the previous speakers and the previous session, that it's important to understand the sustainability performance of an organization, but also, as Jack said from ChemSec, to make a zoom in these issues is really critical. And also something that really from Change Chemistry organization say that this needs to be understood from an accounting perspective as carbon footprint, and that's what the Chemical Footprint Project is about understanding what are the key metrics to measure this issue, the chemical problem, because it's really complex. And we have developed 102 key performance indicators for not only investors, but also other stakeholders to understand what is the development of this management of the problem by downstream users of chemicals. And we developed one metric that is very important for investors, that is the mass metric. Is the mass of chemicals of high concern. We are very much in line with investors that are thinking about this issue in a progressive way, thinking that looking at this problem from a hazard-based perspective is critical. And we are at the first stages of releasing a chemical footprint of several downstream users, and those companies we name them as a front runners. They are the companies that are leading the way in transparency, because this is important, are showing that they are progressive because they are looking at this problem from a hazard-based perspective, and also they are providing transparency. They are telling not only investors, but all the stakeholders that this is a problem, that they are tracking that information and understanding what is the pollution that they are creating and what are the steps that they are taking to solve this problem. And it's interesting, I was 4 weeks ago in the IOMC workshop in Paris, where the European Commission showed all the directive, the progress that they have, is the interlink in showing the chemical pollution, the mass of chemicals of high concern, and the path to safer alternatives. They are showing that path is an interlink in between the two indicators. So it's important to show both indicators and understand where they are, what is the baseline, and where are the solutions and how they are implementing solutions.
Thank you very much, Angela, for that deep dive into the chemical footprint. So now we have this overview of all these tools, but how can investors really use them? Will they be able to do investment decisions based on your tools, Stacy?
Yes, and thank you for bringing up my slides here. And I'll start this by saying we were invited into a discussion that was organized by the Safer Chemistry Impact Fund. And I've got their metrics report here to share the work that we were doing with individual companies on taking our chemical hazard data and running all of their ingredients through our system to produce a baseline report. We use a very simple rating system. A, B's, and C's are considered safer chemistry. D's and F's are the things that we want to move away from. And then a very important but maybe unrecognized category is the question mark. What's unknown? Where are the unknown hazards? And so what you're seeing on the right of the screen there is an actual baseline report that we did by aggregating several of our beauty and personal care brands. And a shout out to Dow, their amazing beauty and personal care sector has been very transparent. We ran an ingredient intelligence report and several of their products qualified for our SAFER program. But what you're seeing here is something really remarkable. Of the 8,500 products that we looked at across the 6 brands and suppliers that participated, there were 320,000 ingredients that were disclosed, but they were deduplicated, water, mica, ethanolamine, they were deduplicated down to just about 2,300 chemicals. And that was a light bulb moment for our collaborative. They were like 2,300 chemicals. Like, I've been walking around saying there's 80,000 chemicals in use and we don't know anything about them. But in reality, what's being used in this palette across all of these brands is only 2,300 ingredients. And then what this donut is showing you is that at the time that we ran this, which was now back in 2023, we could characterize through chemical hazard assessment 70% of them. And look, only 3% Ds and Fs. Does that start to change our narrative about what we think about what's going on? There's still high priority things to eliminate in those Ds and Fs, but we also, I think the relief on these companies, the burden on these sustainability professionals to say, wow, 60-some% is low concern. I do not have to worry that that's going to sneak up on me. Let's focus on the Ds and the Fs, but the big alarm bell was the 30% unknown. And that's where our pre-competitive collaboratives come together and specifically invest in those chemical hazard assessments to close those knowledge gaps. And spoiler alert, later this year, we'll release a report that shows more than 10% improvement in closing those data gaps. So how can this be used for investors? We do this for individual companies. We roll it up into industry insights. And that has started to get investors interested in, how can that inform the decisions that I'm making? And I'm really hoping it will be a pull strategy because we did design this to be an inside-out tool. And so far, no company, and we've done dozens and dozens of companies, has yet made it publicly available. I love the way the Chemical Footprint Project incentivizes them to make that public. So maybe some of this, working with investors to sort of draw this out of the companies who are doing this hard work.
Wow, great, because this, I think, is the underlying basis for coming further. And I know from the investors' side, in climate, they are already far ahead in with this topic, in data, in measuring. But for example, they do have at the end, they can screen a portfolio, an investment fund, and screen if they are aligned to the Paris Agreement of 2 degrees, 1.5 degrees. So would you think that it's possible to screen a portfolio in the future to see, okay, this is the toxic score of this portfolio?
Absolutely. And I'll say we did beauty and personal care because it was the low-hanging fruit because there's high transparency there. But we are also now running donuts in electronics, their process chemicals and their product chemicals in the built environment. That's been working on disclosure for a decade now. We've run the same kind of donut. It doesn't look as good. We have a lot of work to do, and we'll be kicking off an apparel and footwear effort. And I'll know then if it's worth pursuing. If we're 30% on the donut, I'm like, oh, that's a long way to go. But if we're 50%, I think that we can start to systematically address this so that we can run these big portfolios through. So I wanted to make the point, to your point, that yes, beauty and personal care is the low-hanging fruit, but we're ready to do something harder.
Great. Sounds great. And actually, I also have a big trust into AI, that with all these data, which we will hopefully get, and actually, again, transparency is key. If we get transparency, we can manage much better. But how would you think of investors are using AI, and is this vision of having an investment portfolio and just run it through data and AI to deliver, okay, this is a good investment, this is a bad investment?
Well, if that
Toxic-wise?
were the case, I might not be sitting here. But no, I think it can help a lot. It's again, a lot of it we talked about this. I mean, transparency being key. I mean, AI is only as good as the information it has available. One of the things, again, we tend to play in places where there is a lot of unknowns, and AI can really help with giving some guidance on that. And so, as an investor, looking at a portfolio, looking at a company's product portfolio, and saying, okay, well, if 70% of that is unknown, can I at least get some indicator of, is this likely to be an issue? How big an issue is this? Are it related to things that are an issue? And AI can do a really good job on that.
Thank you very much for that, Ethan. And what do you think? How do investors use the chemical footprint? How can it get further? What are your plans also for the future? So that investors are really doing investment decisions based on your tool.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that investors who are progressive in this field, that are looking at this issue through the angle of hazard-based approaches, they use the chemical footprint project standard and key performance indicators as a way to communicate to companies that that's what they want to do. They want to see reductions in mass of chemicals of high concern, and also they use the project as a way to help companies to implement a series of steps to guide them to integrate the process into their management practices. We have observed that companies that use the approach that we have, it's easy for them to manage this complex issue internally, even if they are multinational companies, regardless of the size of the company. So that's like two ways in which investors are using, through looking at the key performance indicator metric, the mass of chemicals of high concern, but also trying to guide and create change through the methodology and the approach that we have.
Thank you very much. Well, and then we come to the question, can investors trust your tools? Are they science-based? How do you communicate about it? How is it set up so that they don't have a fear that it's guiding in the wrong direction? What would you say?
It's the core of who we are at ChemFORWARD. If you don't trust the data, then data sharing doesn't work. And so we have a multi-step quality assurance process. First, we have one profile per chemical, so we don't have any conflicts in multiple profiles. Then the assessments are conducted by toxicology firms who do this work for a living. And even though they do their great work and have their own QA processes in place, we further have their profile peer-reviewed, which is something that users of the platform asked for. And it helps to make sure that our method is being applied consistently, and that all assessors who are contributing to the repository are sort of operating at the same level. In addition to the peer review, we have regular maintenance. We're regularly scanning every chemical in our base for new things that are emerging on the regulatory landscape, and databases, so that we can see if new studies. Typically, the state of the practice has been a chemical hazard assessment is good for 5 years, and then it should be reassessed. We've just eliminated the concept of expiration by putting in these maintenance processes, because we found that some data is better than no data, and the burden on companies to continually reassess every 5 years when maybe something material hasn't changed isn't great and isn't scalable. So this maintenance process that we've put in place allows this extended life of those things that haven't changed that much. And then we flag things for high priority for reassessment. Something that's materially incorrect will be removed from the system. And then I'll say finally, and kind of in partnership with the suppliers, the manufacturers of these chemicals, often they have the best data on these chemicals. And we have a confidential process where they can take something out of their vault. It can be considered under NDA by the assessor and the verifier, not by ChemFORWARD. And if it can materially change an endpoint, improve the profile, the assessor will do that. It goes back in the vault. and we can all enjoy a better profile, but they can keep their $1 million study private. Finally, there is a challenge process. If someone says, this doesn't look right to me, I think that's a neurotoxin, we have a formal process to handle challenges. So those are all the things that we do to make sure that our A, B, C, Ds, and Fs have credibility, and we have a formal process to handle if there's a discrepancy.
Nice. That credibility is key. Yes. and thank you for elaborating on that. Regarding AI, well, I know from the first times of ChatGPT where you got answers which were just made up somehow. So how do you verify stuff?
Yes, AI in general does have a credibility gap. That's absolutely true. I always, as an AI professional, I don't never let AI have the last word. But one of for us, we address this via the fact that we're integrating science directly into the models, which allows us to provide some really hard guidelines or guardrails around what our models are producing. It has to be within something that is physically possible, is something that is measurable. We've built the systems so that they can provide a confidence score, so it'll be able to say, hey, I'm 80% confident in this result, or I'm 10% confident in this result, giving you some sense of where that came from. And then when we do provide a result, it's always, where are the sources? Like, where did we get this information? We're comparing this molecule to something else. It's saying, hey, this is probably toxic. Why do we think that? Where is that toxicity? Who provided that information? Which source? And it allows the end user to really help make that decision, because again, we're focused on areas where there is unknowns. There's going to be unknowns. Some human is gonna have to make that assessment of, all right, how do I feel about this? Our job is to provide as much information as possible and direct them to where they really should be spending their time. So that's our approach.
Thank you very much. Regarding ChemScore and the basis, where did it come from? Is it credible? Well, we have asked companies, we have asked authorities, we have asked investors when we set up the first methodology. It got screened very deeply. And then on the process of the last 5 years, we really listened to the companies because, there are some difficulties in REACH registrations, and is this intermediate or not? And all those topics we really discussed in depth and adjusted to it. And I think now we've got 75% response rate. So we do the scoring, we ask the companies for input, we ask them to comment on the draft scores. They are always able to give us further information. And that 3/4 of the companies are really in active dialogue and doing an input. This shows that it is relevant for the industry. So therefore, we are continuing this journey. We just asked about the methodology of 2025. So we are doing this in a collaborative way. What about you, Angela? How is it? Is it science-based? The chemical footprint
project? Yes.
Project.
We are a science-based organization. We were created by leading academics that are thinking forward about the chemical issue. And we use science-based tools to help companies to manage this problem. And we used a chemical of high concern reference list as a way to tackle the issue and measure the the mass metric. And that reference list is based on authoritative lists, like the REACH list, for example, and it's all science-based because it integrates scientific input, but also it is integrating stakeholder input. And we also have a special assurance process in the chemical footprint project. Is in line with the mandate of the reporting directive of doing assurance of accounting regarding to chemicals management. We verify the information that the companies are providing to us, but also we are doing an external verification as part of the key performance indicators. We ask companies to do external verification of the accounts that they are providing, together with another layer of assurance that is done by communities. Some communities are using our accounts and reporting on the key performance metrics that we are reporting to engage in conversation with companies and ask them to improve the management practices.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much here to you in the panel, and it's now up to you. Do you have more questions regarding our tools or what we do? Please.
Stefano from WT Consulting. No, my question is like, I am really, how to say, a human being and a political person. I like policy making, and when I see there are different perspectives from industry, NGOs, or the government and so on, it's always good to have a checks and balance, like, understanding, okay, somebody is saying something, how this is reliable, science-based, so we had a discussion before, and open and transparent. So I wonder, is there a way to that all the tools come together and say, and give one profile, depending on the use, on the chemical, whatever the aspect is analyzed, so then all the efforts in the industry that are all different, depending on the company, the sector, and so on, they can really go and get combined together for the only planet we have and the only human race that we are. So just...
Oh, that's the dream, huh?
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that I really do believe that is the dream, and I'll say that when the Safer Chemistry Impact Fund selected our database as the basis for their metrics in transforming supply chains, it was with the understanding that the ChemFORWARD database needs to become what they're calling a data trust. And that means it's not just for ChemFORWARD, it's not just for our tool, the Ingredient Intelligence Report, but that the data could be embedded in any number of tools to validate AI, to show the movement in safer chemistry. A donut on each of your companies would be the dream. And so I hope that as we become this data trust, that others will use the data, will at least embed this piece of information in the great work that they're doing, which could accomplish some of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and actually, I think at the moment these tools are serving different needs. So ingredient assessment, downstream users, AI, also the wider perspective of products, the chemical industry. So it's at the moment tools which are serving a different need. Nevertheless, I'm also a very big believer that we have to include and getting more. A holistic approach in the future. Nevertheless, this is only possible with transparency. If something is hidden, you can't integrate it. So again, and also this is then you always have to talk about money. Who is providing the stuff? We are doing ChemScore for free, and it's open, it's public. But yeah, we can do that because our donors are wanting us to do such things. Yeah. So therefore, it's always, I think, also a topic of who is paying for what and how can we integrate everything when we get the data.
Yeah, we are at the Chemical Footprint Project. Is very important to work collaboratively with other stakeholders. Like, for example, our chemical of high concern reference list is already recognized by the SASB standard, that is part of the IEFRS, which is predicted to take over the GRI standard in reporting process. Also, very much working with ChemFORWARD in integrating the safer alternatives indicator into one of the KPIs that we manage. And And we also work with safer materials and artificial intelligence through a project that is the core project with the University of Buffalo, and also with external scoring systems like the Toxic Free Future scorecard that is very much in alignment with the Chemical Footprint Project. So, and in line also with the Global Framework of Chemicals that is mainly has a race approach and stakeholder approach that's at the cornerstone of our work at Clean Production Action.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Olivier Jorke, also WT Consulting. I'm in risk assessments in 40 years, so I like to bring some provocation in this discussion a little bit.
Please do so.
Data trust. Where do data come from? Yeah. Don't you think you guys are running behind? I mean, you draw attention to things which are basically more or less obvious. I mean, if we take, the regulatory process is slow, sometimes too slow. But I think the problems are on the table. Industry is working on all the issues, they are aware. And again, talking about investors, investors go where the money is, where the money flows, where you can make money in the end. So I think basically with all the regulatory steps which are in place, we are on the way. Yeah. Oh. And I mean, data in the end, the data you have in data trust, you get from where do you get it? I mean, you hardly have full study reports. How reliable are those data? I mean, you do a great job. I'm familiar with your organizations. I'm familiar with Lorraine, Hein, and all these kind of people. But I mean, this is a kind of assessment evaluation steps which basically work in parallel already in Europe. And right now we are on a way where we're looking into critical chemicals. We know we don't like them anymore, but we have processes in place where we may authorize them where they are still needed. Otherwise, they will be phased out. And it's
I think you're missing a critical piece, which is, and I agree with you that Europe is doing an excellent job in identifying what we should not use.
Right.
They're not doing a very good job in verifying chemicals that we should use instead to avoid a regrettable substitution. And that is the core of the Chemical Hazard Data Trust. And further, I would say, nobody's bringing attention to unknown hazards, which is a huge risk for investors. What's the next thing that's going to sneak up on us? So I agree with you about chemicals of concern, and I would challenge you on the rest.
Well,
actually, I don't know, should we are running out of time now? Can I allow I'm very sorry about that, but I was told to be quite strict with time. But I hope that we can continue this controversial discussion down in the floor. Thank you very much. Well, this is the recap of our session on sustainability and de-risking tools. And actually, we had 4 panel members, and we had different tools. We started from an ingredients level. Stacy told us about their ChemFORWARD assessment of ingredients and how an investment fund already used the tool for evaluating their portfolio. To AI, Ethan from NobleAI told us about that we are getting much more solutions in the future, and probably the pace will be much faster with AI. Then over to ChemScore and what we are doing at ChemSec, where we evaluate the chemical industry on their chemical management. And also this is used by the investor initiative when they are engaging with chemical companies. And the last one was Angela from CPA, and she talked about the chemical footprinting of downstream users, so another category down the value chain, and how investors are using their questions as KPIs to measure progress when they engage with chemical companies. So you see there are a variety of tools around. We've got the question if we could not combine them all, and I think that would be the future, that you have a more harmonized way of looking at it, but we need more data, we need more transparency to achieve that.